Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Evan Mobley and James Harden were terrific as the Cavs got a bounce-back victory over the Bucks. Maybe a little bit more uncomfortable than we would have liked to see, but it was still great to see the Cavs back in the win column. Joining me today is a co-host that's always great to see as well, my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Was it the prettiest win we ever have seen? No, but as we love to say, they don't ask how. They ask how many. And the Cavs took home a win against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, not all wins are created equal. And no, this was not the most beautiful of wins this season. But it was still a win that I cherished in some ways because Evan Mobley was absolutely terrific. And this is just a continuation of a streak of pretty good basketball from him. And we've kind of buried talking about Mobley these last couple episodes. And you know, I'm probably more to blame than you are, as you were away for one of them. You were away for one of them, so this is really my fault. But Evan has been playing pretty consistently great basketball for over a week now. I think he is looking more and more confident on the offensive end. Obviously, the free throws are worth discussing, and that's somewhere where he needs to get better. But I think that he is looking more springy. I think he is looking more assertive offensively. I think you are seeing him get to his move quicker and with less hesitation than he has in the past. You're seeing him get to these counters. And that's on top of the elite defensive, performance that you expect on a night-to-night basis. At a time where the Cavs are struggling on the defensive end, Mobley has been the anchor, at least keeping them afloat when it comes to defense. And the offensive performance, he just looks so confident out there. And I think it's one of the more significant developments, because when we look at the things that are concerning right now with the Cavs, I think some of it is effort and buy-in. And we've seen them flip that switch before already this season. Getting Evan Mobley on the right page, that's something that actually has a tangible impact. And that's one of those things that, if it continues trending in the right direction, is a ceiling raising thing for this Cavs roster.
Yeah, the volume is way up, almost back to his October volume of shot attempts. He averaged 14.8 attempts in the month of October. To start the year, when he was really like exploring the space. He's back up to 14.4. For a frame of reference, in February, he only played 4 games because he was hurt, but he averaged 10.5. In January, he averaged 13.5. But the field goal splits have just been steadily rising. You look at December, he put up 50% from the field, 50.4, which is obviously not very good. January gets up to 53.7, February up to 57.1, and now he's all the way up to 59.1, which is exactly where I want my Evan Mobley field goal percentage to be at.
Right. And, James Harden joked after the game that he, as good as the performance was, where he had 27, 15, and 2 assists with 3 blocks, he's like, this should have been a 30 and 20 game, right? And I'm enjoying that mentality of James Harden. I think it's really encouraging to see that those two are really starting to develop some solid chemistry. It's actually interesting. Like,
it's a pairing I was pretty dubious about. And it's nice to see them kind of finding each other. And you even heard, I want to say it was Kenny that said in the post game, but it might have been a Serena report. I cannot remember. So apologies in advance. But I think someone mentioned that they were literally like having meetings and chatting and sessions, like breaking out time to like talk about how to help each other in the pick and roll, because the chemistry I don't think is as seamless as it is with Jarrett. But it just goes to show, like, basketball isn't just about like that instant chemistry. Sometimes it's about the work you put in with your teammate.
If I'm not mistaken, that might have actually been Brad that was relaying that information during the broadcast.
But 0 for 2 for me. Sorry.
Hey, you can't make them all. The important thing is that you're still taking them, though. I had some hope for it, obviously, right? Like after the Harden trade, one of the things that I talked about is that he's made it work with a variety of different big men. And what I find interesting is the way that Harden and Mobley's chemistry is developing is very similar to how the Harden Jalen Tyson chemistry was, right? Where Tyson, we saw him kind of slip a lot of those screens. Harden would find him. He's looking in those types of situations. A lot of it is 3-man actions. You're seeing the same thing with Evan Mobley, right? Like they're leveraging both Harden's gravity as an on-ball player with a movement shooter. Typically, sometimes it's Max Strus, sometimes it's Sam Merrill. Maybe it starts with Evan Mobley as kind of an inverted pick and roll ball handler and kind of weaponizing those guys to get him cutting in on the roll. And Mobley likes to slip those screens just like Jalen Tyson, right? Like he kind of takes that same approach where I'm going to slip and I'm going to kind of 2-hand shove, and that's how I'm generating my space. Whereas with Jared Allen, it's a little more straightforward, right? Like it's just, all right, we're going to spread things out. It's a 2-man pick and roll game. Jared's going to set a really good screen and he's going to roll to the basket, right? Like it's straightforward in that way, but I really like the chemistry that Harden and Mobley are developing, because it reminds me of some of the kind of pet sets that we would run back in the day, right? Whether it was 3-man game with Donovan and Darius and Evan, or kind of any of those other iterations. We saw a little bit of Max involved as a secondary creator already. Like to me, this is positive strides to create a more organic and balanced offensive approach, which I think is going to be absolutely crucial heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you just can't, like, and I was thinking about it a little bit last night watching the game. Like, while I do think Jarrett will remain paired to James once he's back and once the team is healthy, he says as he vigorously knocks on wood. But with that said, like, the starters are gonna play 15 minutes a game together, like at minimum. And that means that you don't really want your starting lineups to be predictable and just say, oh, well, James has it, so Jarrett's going to be in the action. Or Donovan's got it, so Evan's going to be in the action. Like, you don't want to be that predictable and binary. And, like, especially if you're going to continue to start Dean at the 3, who just isn't as dynamic of an offensive player as the other guys. Like, you're going to have to find your, like, curveballs that the defense isn't ready for elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the flaws of the regular season approach last year, was that everything was so siloed that when a piece went missing or wasn't able to perform at the same level, it really threw everything out of whack, right? Where Darius was the only one playing with Jared in those staggered minutes and Donovan playing with Evan, and you just kind of saw some of those bench lineups when things were stress tested against Indiana kind of fall apart, and that effectiveness no longer was there. So I think it's really, really important for Evan to continue playing this well and playing this way. I do not worry about Jared coming back and that having an impact, because historically, typically they do play better together. The volume sometimes it isn't as high, right? Like we know that when everyone's healthy, obviously there is going to be a sacrifice from that standpoint. But from an overall team effectiveness perspective, I think that the chemistry between those two has been really, really solid. And I continue to believe that's one of the foundations for this team. But I think having Mobley this involved in the offense and it coming in ways that feel natural, that don't feel forced. It's not a record scratch like some of those early season possessions where it's like, okay, this is very clearly going to be an Evan possession. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I just went ahead and looked because I was like, man, how much has James even played with both bigs at the same time? Mm-hmm. And it's 72 minutes across 5 games. And that trio has a plus 22.6 net rating in those 72 minutes. So
yeah, pretty good.
And obviously we know the new top 4, the more 4 grouping only
Call
has
them the core 4. Don't be a coward.
I think more 4 is funnier. That's my only problem with it. Like, Core 4 is a better troll to just keep the nickname going.
That's the thing. I don't want you succumbing to the pressures of Twitter here.
I just think More 4 is a sillier. It tickles my funny bone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
And I want to say that group has like 36 minutes together, and blew the doors off of teams. So
Yeah.
we're finding the data that says this is going to be okay once you get everyone out there. But like Evan's involvement is, to your point, a huge part, because like as we've said a billion times, like this team's identity didn't change. It's still got the two guards that are going to initiate a lot of the offense. And if Evan can't be a reliable safety valve, then we're back to the same problems offensively in the postseason.
Yeah, and I want to get into some of those kind of implications of that later on in the podcast. I think that there's a real interesting discussion to be had, but I do think it was significant that in a game where Donovan Mitchell did not have a strong performance, he definitely had an off night. Maybe some of that can be attributed to the friendly fire from Evan Mobley taking out his eye. He mentioned after the game that he's having some trouble seeing out of the eye.
And he's already basically functionally blind anyway. He says all the time.
Yeah, that is a good point. So you know what? Maybe it's just an excuse. No,
I'm just saying it's like it's a real hit on an already weird set of circumstances. Like, hey, do you want to be blind and have no depth perception, Donovan?
I did think it was significant, though, that, on a night where Donovan wasn't himself, that James was able to step up the way that he did. It was a real stabilizing force. I felt really positive about the way that he was running the offense. Even though it was only a 6-assist game, it felt like he made a lot of the passes that led to the passes. He was aggressive getting downhill. He got to the free throw line, took 13 free throw attempts. Carter, he's finally getting some calls. Missed that obvious flagrant where he got undercut. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, even the NBC broadcast was just like absolutely flummoxed as to how that didn't get called.
Look, if Reggie Miller is able to see it and accurately describe what's happening, it's pretty clear cut. So I thought it was a great game from him. I thought he took over when the game called for it and took a step back and got guys involved when the game called for it. I thought that he really, really was that stabilizing force. And I think from an offensive standpoint, this, in my opinion, was his best performance for the Cavs.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I hadn't really considered whether it was his best or not. I mean, that end of first quarter flurry where he scored like 12, 13 points in a row was pretty filthy. The 2 turnovers is nice to see. I think the assist total definitely suppressed by a nightmarish shooting stretch at different points early in the game. When, especially that second quarter where Milwaukee goes 8 of 12 from 3, and the Cavs are 0 of 8 at one point. But yeah, I thought he was great in this game. I do find myself really loving to see him have the ball in crunch time. He's just, I think there's something to how many freaking reps the guy has in running offense in late game. Yeah, that like. There's a degree of he just doesn't seem to change anything about the way he's playing.
No, he is going to play the same style pretty much regardless of what's going on. And the one thing that I find encouraging, right? Like I think one of the kind of the concerns that we had coming into this experience after the trade was made was, is he going to slow down too much, right? Like, is the Cavs offense going to kind of grind to a half-court halt to some extent? And I really haven't felt that that's the case. There's a couple times where he'll get the rebound, and by the time he dribbles up to the three-point line, he's waiting for everyone else to kind of catch up to him. I think he is methodical when he is evaluating a set defense, because I think when the defense is set, he recognizes, okay, I'm going to diagnose the hell out of this. I'm going to probe, and I'm going to assess what the best option is for the team, right? Whether it's creating for someone, identifying if somebody has an advantage and calling for them to come into the action, right? Like he is, an offensive coordinator out there. But when the advantage is, hey, the defense isn't set and we have the opportunity to push, I feel like whether it's headmanning the basketball or bringing it up quickly himself, I enjoy the tempo that he's playing at. I think I obviously don't expect him to be like someone that just goes out and flies. I don't think that he's prime Steve Nash here running 7 seconds or less. But I think that the tempo has been appropriate for the personnel and the situations, basically.
Yeah, I think he's doing a nice job of taking what the defense is giving and just getting them into action. I think his transition finishing has been really, really good. I think he does, and I do wonder, especially as we get back to the double big, if he'll kind of need to take those opportunities a little more when the lane is open and he doesn't have to really account for anything on some of his drives. So yeah, I'm interested to see how he continues to kind of develop as a scorer, because I will say this as well. I've been generally encouraged these last few games with his scoring. Obviously that Dallas loss was a bit of a nightmare, but like the Orlando game, he was freaking phenomenal as a scorer. The Milwaukee game, obviously freaking phenomenal as a scorer. And I think it's assuaging some concerns, and it's so hard given the kinds of games we're playing right now. It's so hard to like know for sure, but like some of my concerns are like, does he need Jarrett's screen setting to get off at this point in his career? I think some of those angsts have gone down as I get to know the player a little better.
I think the type of offense that Kenny runs helps kind of alleviate some of that pressure as well, right? Like I think when I would watch him with the Clippers, it really was on his shoulders, right? And you would see those games where Zubac would be out, where it's like, man, like he's just creating an isolation all the time. The Cavs don't really ask their guards to do that, right? Like we are a low isolation team. And whether it's the wings or guards getting involved in screening, right? Like there's just so many different ways to kind of initiate the offense that I think it takes pressure off of him. And I think the way that the Cavs run offense too makes it more stark when they aren't running their stuff, right? Like when you have one of those second quarter stretches where it's like, nobody's really moving here, man. Like we're not getting into the 3-point line. It's just such a clear contrast versus when the Cavs are playing engaged, active offense that like it just screams off the screen, right? And I think the second quarter offense was one of the low lights of this game, right? I think the defense was bad. I don't think it was Mavericks bad. And I think that there were stretches where they were playing better defense. I think people definitely focused on the 3-point shooting, and we can get to that in a moment. But I thought one of the most egregious stretches was that second quarter offense, where it just felt like nobody was involved. Nobody was playing with the sharpness and kind of the
ball handlers just weren't trying to turn the corner to get downhill. I mean, at the end of the day, there was just a lot of like soft angles to the rim that are just like a semi-engaged defense is going to shut that off. Like you need to try to turn that corner violently.
And the proof of that is the Milwaukee Bucks. They are semi-engaged even at the best of times.
Yeah,
their best simulates a semi-engaged.
Yeah,
defense.
but like if you're gonna go at like a really soft angle at the rim, like they're just gonna slide their feet and go with you. Like if you're not, creating, kind of getting that. I was talking about like bend, like defensive ends in football, but like you need that as a driver in the NBA. You need to attack a screen. And attack the backpedaling big man, or you're just going to be a side to side offense. And I think this team can fall into that within their worst habits, especially on a night where Donovan just doesn't really seem to have it physically. It was kind of James getting downhill or nobody getting downhill, because even Dennis I thought had a really hard time getting downhill in this game, and that's normally his thing.
That's his thing, yeah.
Is being able to get to the rim and being a quick lad.
Yeah.
So I think it left them a little dependent on certain things, and certainly I think there's probably something to be said for the scheme, given that in terms of the help being shown towards the drivers, given that Evan had around 47 dunks where he caught it and went up right away and dunked it, didn't have to take a step. So, like, clearly they were shading the help, but it just felt like the Cavs weren't. I think during this stretch, and this is it's such March basketball, which sucks, but, like, I think the Cavs at their worst in these like last 4 or 5 games are just like, I would say it's less about like not working hard physically, but it's like I feel like you watch that second quarter and you don't see a very thoughtful team. They're just kind of out there playing.
It's a little bit like me when Trish is away for like a week. I'm not as motivated to do the little things and pick up after myself, right? Like a couple dishes are going to end up on the counter. I'm not a
pot
slob.
soaking in the sink.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a slob, but like I'm just not getting to things as quickly as I would otherwise. Right. And I think when I saw that Giannis wasn't in for this game, I almost knew that it was going to be a tougher game than it would be with him. And not because Giannis makes the team worse. I just knew that we probably weren't going to get 48 minutes of engaged basketball, right? And I think that second quarter was a prime example. Yeah, exactly, right? Like it is the month that correlates least with the rest of the season, right? Like it is historically the month that matters the least. And we talked about it before, where hey, we have a finite number of games here. I'd like to see more that gives me hope, but I do also know that this is a very talented roster, and I've seen them flip the switch already. It just, man, that second quarter, they look like a team that was just a little bit disconnected. They look like a team that needed Zoom Workplace, because teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together, so your workflow is like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. Speaking of things that have not correlated with the postseason basketball, just like March, the same has been true for Donovan Mitchell's post All-Star break slumps. You look at the last couple of years here, and I think he
just
clearly
misses Coco. He gets a nice week with the lady, and
that's fair. I think what we're seeing, like I thought he's looked fine physically since he's come back from the groin. I thought Milwaukee was the first time where I'm like, he's lacking just a little bit of burst here. I thought some of the takes, he just didn't have the same kind of explosiveness.
If I may, though, because I think the biggest challenge since he's returned from the groin injury has been on defense, and that's one of those things where if you are limited, you're just a little slower, a little easier to get by, and it's not as readily apparent. So, like, and obviously we just don't know. Like, we'll never know with injuries.
It might not be that.
We literally, like, if we were reporters and not idiot podcasters and like actually went to the games, we might be like, "Hey, Donovan, how is your groin still bothering you?" But like, we can't ask, so we have to do some functional guesswork here.
Yeah, and also we've kind of seen this the last 3 years, really, right? Where the All-Star break hits, and usually there's some form of soft tissue injury, whether it's groin, sometimes it's calf soreness, right? Like in 23-24, prior to the All-Star break, he had a 60 true shooting percentage. That dropped 4% after the All-Star break. We also saw the Cavs go from a team that was 13.3 points better with him on court versus off to 6.6 points better with him off versus on, right? Like big drop off. But come playoffs, that true shooting percentage bumps right back up to 58.4, right? So not all the way back to the regular season form, but you expect it to be a little bit lower in the playoffs. Last season, he went from a 58.6 true shooting percentage to 54.8, right? So once again, a 4% drop off in terms of efficiency. The Cavs went from +8 with him on the court to -5 with him on the court, right? In terms of on-off differential. Again, that true shooting percentage bumping right back up in the playoffs. This year, he had basically a 62 true shooting percentage before the All-Star break.
He's been having a great year, man. 62% is nuts for a 6'1" guard.
Bonkers. And now it's down to 55.8. In terms of on-off differential, prior to the break, it was +10.5. It is +7.1 now after the All-Star break. But these last 6 games since coming back from the groin injury, the Cavs are 12.2 points better with him off versus on. So obviously that post All-Star break stretch was actually going pretty damn well before this groin injury popped up. So it's not something that causes me concern, because I have seen Donovan, like, when we get that week off between the end of the regular season to playoffs, it seems to do him a lot of good, right? Like, it's usually wear and tear. Historically, we've had a lot of travel at this time of year, so that's been an impact as well. So I expect him to bounce back. It's not causing me concern. But the one thing I will say is, to me, it highlights the importance of getting Evan Mobley involved and on track, and also to some extent getting Jalen Tyson involved and on track, because I think we need guys to make Donovan's life easier so that you don't have a repeat of the prior seasons, right? Where, yeah, he did bounce back in terms of efficiency in the playoffs, but, has to put it on like a Superman level load in the Orlando series and in the early Boston series, and all of a sudden the calf pops up and he's not able to finish the series. Last year, obviously Miami was very easy, but you saw after, like, by the fourth quarter of game 2 versus Indiana, that calf popped right back up, right? And it was an issue, and he looked so physically limited in game 5. I don't know if he could have continued the series. Like, I think it's really, really important that we get that secondary creation on top of James Harden, so that when Donovan is gearing up and he's getting into playoff Donovan mode, that the help is there and he doesn't wear himself out too soon.
Yeah, I think it's all very fair. I think these are, this is generally the toughest time of the year to evaluate anyway, and then Donovan having these kind of annual injuries or slumps at around this time is just, there's nothing much to say beyond it's a bummer. And I will say this: if the recent slump is injury related, I'm certainly not opposed to give him a few days off. There's I have no one I'm more confident to find a way to get themselves playoff ready than Donovan Mitchell on this team. So like, even if, I don't think he needs to have a crazy ramp up period or something like that. So, just hope, but like, this team has been pretty darn conservative with injuries for the most part this year. So, hoping that,
it might just be conditioning, right? Like, coming back from the injury. Like,
we don't know.
Yeah. I agree, and I think the track record of being so conservative with injuries makes you think, okay, like this isn't something that's necessarily a concern. I just think it's clear he's not quite himself right now, right? Whether that's fatigue, whether it's working his way back, whatever the case may be. It's not something that concerns me, but I do think it's obviously a factor, right? Like, I think, as you mentioned, the lateral quickness doesn't necessarily seem to be there. Certainly getting targeted a whole lot on the defensive end. James is getting targeted a whole lot on the defensive end. There were certainly some real low lights from him in that Milwaukee game. And, obviously the 3-point shooting of the Bucks was something that jumped out to people that were watching.
It is bananas, by the way, that this is a top 3 shooting team in the NBA and they're 28-40. Like, yeah, that's so hard, I feel.
It is the one thing they do well. And I was looking at the tracking data. So the Bucks actually only got 14 wide open threes, which the Dallas Mavericks allow the fewest wide open threes per game, which is 15. So it's not like the Cavs gave up a ton of uncontested, like completely uncontested looks.
They did give up 23rd best offense in the NBA. They're the top 3 shooting team. That's crazy. Top 2.
That's bonkers. I don't know how you do that. The Cavs did give up a lot of kind of those late contests, right, where they're within 6 feet. 23 of those shots to be specific, and I think that matched the eye test. There was certainly, once again, a lot of kind of overhelping and miscommunications. You saw guys kind of throwing up their hands, like, no, you weren't supposed to be there. So I think that's one of those things where I do expect the point of attack to get a little bit better when guys are engaged and they're working a little bit harder. But those miscommunications, I think, if you want to work smarter and not harder, making sure that you're communicating and everyone's in the same spot so you don't have to go scrambling to contest some of these threes might be the way to go. But I do think some of this is a lack of familiarity, right? Like, this was the first time all season that the Cavs actually had everybody in their wing rotation available for a game.
Yeah, it's and this is where it's just so hard because, like, you just don't have that much time to figure this out, and it's the worst data part of the year, and I just kind of keep going back to, like, I just don't, I almost think the best thing we're going to learn is just Kenny tooling around with different lineups and different combinations of guys, because like everything else just kind of seems nebulous from a tracking perspective, let's just say.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And I did think, you know, on the subject of him tooling around, closing with James, Don, Sam, and Max, along with Evan Mobley, I thought that was the right call. That closing lineup did what it was supposed to do. A couple kind of weird plays and turnovers that made it a little closer than it needed to be at the end, but I thought that was the right group. And I think it's obviously significant because Max is still very clearly working his way back, right? Like, you talk about giving up penetration at the point of attack. He joked about that after the game with AC, saying that I'm a traffic cone out there. We don't expect that to be the case with Max. He historically has done a very good job of staying in front of his guys. So I think that's one of those signs of rust. I think the other sign of rust was those very loud misses that he had early in the game. Those were clangers that probably looks like me if I was out there right now. But I think it is significant that Kenny once again just kind of showed how much faith and trust he has in the basketball IQ of Max. And after the game, he mentioned, hey, like, we're ramping up his minutes. We're taking the cautious approach here, but it's hard not to close with Max Strus, right? And he said that he doesn't rule out starting Max when the time comes.
I find it wholly unsurprising that a basketball psycho in Kenny Atkinson is a big fan of a basketball psycho in Max Strus.
They are a perfect match in that way.
He's in a pot as far as I'm concerned.
It was so funny when Max was talking about kind of the recovery process, where he's like, guys are kind of telling me I got to have a little more fun. I got to lighten up a little bit here. He certainly is someone that takes the game ridiculously serious. I think even though he's definitely slow-footed out there as he works his way back, I think the intensity level was at least where it needed to be. Like, you're never really questioning whether or not he's playing hard. So that was really encouraging to see. I do just continue to think, right? Like, just from a balancing the rotation standpoint, I think things would be a whole lot simpler if you can go back to a reliable Max Strus starting at small forward. We'll see if things break our way, right? Like, there's a whole variety of things. Like, if Max is still moving around basically like he is right now, I don't care what the kind of fit is. Like, at that point, like, yeah, start Dean, figure it out. Like, maybe you get some high impact minutes from him off the bench, and you can see that he can play some power forward, backup power forward if need be. Like, you can go that route. But if he's looking like himself, if he's even close to 90%, I just think it's the path that makes the most sense, particularly with Jalen Tyson still struggling to regain his form.
Yeah, so I do think we should just talk macro. We've talked so much about the starters, but I do think we should talk a little wider about the playoff rotation, because it's clearly vexing our coach, who has mentioned it, I think, 2 straight post games about knowing that he needs to start cutting down, and he's needs to make decisions about what a 9-man rotation looks like in the postseason. And I just kind of want to ask you right off the rip, who are your 9?
So do you want my hopeful 9?
If you were coaching the team, your 9, not what you think Kenny's going to do, just if you were in charge, what would you pick?
I think if if we're assuming health and everyone's in relative good form, so, you know, within like the 90th percentile of what you should expect from them, I think I'm cutting Dennis from the rotation and I'm rolling Sam, Max, Dean, and Jalen as kind of the 4 outside of, you know, the obvious ones here. Wait, am I
forgot Keon?
I forgot Keon. So Keon as the 5. So I think that would be the way that I'm going. Now, that comes with a big caveat, and I think it's part of why getting Mobley back on the right track, getting Max Strus back from a conditioning standpoint, and getting Jalen Tyson back into form is so important, because I think all of those guys, if they are playing well, can bring enough secondary playmaking and, you know, initiation of the offense where you do not need to have Dennis Schroeder come in as a pure point guard. If Jalen Tyson can't regain his form, and if Evan Mobley's, you know, finishing well but not initiating, and if Max Strus doesn't get back into form, I think you have to start Dennis, and that, or not start Dennis, but you have to keep Dennis in the rotation. And right now, that might mean Jalen Tyson's kind of the odd man out because he's probably the furthest away from kind of that peak form that he's at.
Yeah, I'm not doing that unless I absolutely have to, just because I know that this team's ceiling is higher.
And we need ceiling plays. We need ceiling plays so bad.
If Jalen is on the floor and playing well, he's the only he's a guy who has swung so many games for us this year. You think about the 22 points against the Detroit in that win. Like, he's done it this month, and he played 32 minutes in that game.
Yeah.
And if I'm Kenny, and again, as always, blanket, thank God I'm not, for our listening audience. But if I'm Kenny, like, I'm part of what I'm using the last few, games we have here, the last 13 games of the season, is I'm working with Jalen to help him find himself again. Because the reality is, Dennis is going to be Dennis, is going to be Dennis, is going to be Dennis. Like, that's a guy who needs no guidance or structure to play the way he wants to play, because he plays that way. He's played that way for 11 years or whatever it is. I think Keon Ellis's role is not a particularly flexible one, and so, like, if I'm prioritizing things, I'm prioritizing finding ways to get Jalen going, because if Jalen is near the form he had earlier in the year, then having him and Max and Keon and Dean all as options at the 2, 3, 4, like, all of a sudden you're just really deep and really scary, and when a playoff defense is throwing 3 bodies and shading and closing out hard and taking away the stuff you want to do, I just don't see another player on the roster that has shown me the ability to consistently react to that and just play the game in front of him like Jalen has at his best. So it's like, it feels like a priority to me. And like, it's tough because as the team gets healthy, you want to reward guys who are playing well with minutes. Like Keon got that start a couple games ago, and Kenny mentioned, like, hey, I just wanted to give him a little reward for playing as well as he's played for us. And you want it to be a meritocracy, and like, I think it's so easy for us to always say whoever is playing the best should get the minutes. Because like that seems fair and mature and apolitical. But like, yeah, this situation is one where that's where I would break that rule and say, hey, we're going to prioritize this.
Try to make decisions to make sure that people are playing their best, right? And I think there's a couple things here. One, I think the ankle has been more of a factor than we realize, right? Like, I just think even the foot speed as an on-ball defender hasn't necessarily been there. Outside of his defensive performance on Cade Cunningham, I just feel like he's struggling to stay with guys a little bit more than when he was playing his basketball. And I think that this has kind of been a recurring thing where even if he stays in the game, sometimes, he's kind of grimacing and working that ankle. So hopefully he can get right. I do think that having a full wing rotation is actually going to be really beneficial to trying to get Jalen back on the right page. And the reason I say that is, even if you're starting Dean Wade at small forward, I think one of the things that has thrown Jalen out of whack is playing backup power forward. Last year, the minutes with Jalen playing power forward, if you look at like the cleaning glass stats, were actually good. But I don't think he was actually playing power forward in those minutes. So those sites go based off of height, and he's listed a little bit taller than Max Strus. I think a lot of those minutes came with Max Strus, right? So they kind of share some of those responsibilities. Max is playing as the power forward on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that puts Jalen back in the same kind of position that we've seen him have success. And even if you make the swap of, okay, now Max is going into the starting lineup, he's starting at small forward and Dean's moving to the bench. Even if you make that change, Jalen's still going to be in the same role because Dean's playing as that backup power forward, right? So if you are keeping Jalen kind of confined to that backup small forward role, giving him a few more on-ball reps, assuming health, I do think that is going to put him back on the right page, because I think when Jalen has been at his best, he is getting the ball in his hands a little bit more. I think he is more of a rhythm player than he is kind of one of these, Sam Merrill, just pure shooter. If you give me 6 touches, I can take 6 shots and I feel pretty good about all of them. I think Jalen needs to feel the leather a little bit more than some of these other guys to completely find his groove. And I think that's more likely playing at the small forward versus being kind of a screen setting, rolling power forward.
I completely agree. And I do want to throw a little curveball at you within the rotation, because so far this season, the starting 3, I guess, is just going to be this forever debate, years and years and years of this. But most of our debate for most of the regular season has been Jalen versus Dean. After Hunter kind of got pulled out. And now it's kind of Jalen versus. Now it because Jalen's kind of fallen off and Kenny just doesn't seem to want to give him that spot. For whatever reason, it's kind of become Dean versus Max. And my question to you is, because I think we both agree that if Max is good enough and in good enough shape to do it, we want him. But would you rather have Dean Wade starting small forward in the playoffs, or Sam Merrill starting small forward in the playoffs?
Oh, that is a curveball.
I know, because I don't know if I know the answer, but I think I do.
I think it might be Dean.
I'm still going Sammy, but Sammy, we got to get a Sammy drop.
We do.
But I went ahead and pulled it up. They've played Harden, Don, and Sam have played 162 minutes together, 127.5 offensive rating, Awuga, and a 115.8 defensive rating. Perfectly respectable. They're plus 11.8 in those 162 minutes for that trio. And here's where I'm at on why I think it's Sam. Sam holds up well enough in isolation this year compared to last year. I think he's been much better as an on-ball defender. He checks the box of being a really attentive team defender, which I think is really important for James Donovan backcourt, who can be a little prone to ball watching off ball.
Mm-hmm.
So he does what because Dean adds that value defensively. And one thing I hated, it's so funny that I'm saying this because I spent the entirety of last year complaining about Sam Merrill at the 3 and how small that made us. But I just think it really matters that you have James, who is a much bigger, bulkier defender that can help insulate Sam from some of those more physical matchups and handle his own in isolation against some of those guys. So I gotta say, and I'm just so obsessed with the idea of Dean helping cover. I just don't want to. I don't want to be small in the front court ever. I want. You have 96 minutes of power forward and center minutes to fill. If Evan takes 35 and Jarrett takes 31, that's about 66 of your 96. So you've got another 30 minutes to fill. At the 4 and the 5. And if you can have Dean play all 20 to 25 of his minutes, that means I'm only looking at 5 to 10 minutes of Max at the 4 or Jalen at the 4. And that just feels a lot safer to me.
Yeah.
And so I just think the way the rotation plays out, even if you close with Dean at the 3, if you really want to, in a game that matters and he's in good form and all that stuff, I just keep going back to,
it's easier to close with him when he's coming in off the bench, right? Like it's easier to close and have him still kind of
that's your swing between 20 and 25
that you feel good about. Yeah,
that's your swing. If he doesn't close, he plays 20 in a game. If he does close, he plays 25. But I just think that's a lot more palatable for my rotation. And again, I just think Sam has held up better at the 3. He's showing more supplementary playmaking to be that chaos agent. Man, was he good, by the way, against Milwaukee as a in between player. And then James, I just think materially changes the math in terms of it's not Darius Donovan Sam anymore. It's James Donovan Sam, and that just feels better.
Yeah,
have I sold you? Right? Did I win?
Yeah, I think you win. I'm willing to concede. I think I'm just so like freaked out about how the defense has been these last couple games that I'm just like, let's insulate it as much as possible. But again, if
we haven't had our second best defender on the team,
right. Like I think that's probably throwing more of kind of a monkey wrench into this than anything else. And I do trust Sam, right? So I'm with you. Like I continue to say, right? And I feel like I'm repeating myself because I know I'm repeating myself. But I think the most important part of what you said there is how do you not be small? It's having Dean as the backup power forward, right? And I think everything else you do, it's okay. We got a bunch of 6'5" guys, right? Like, Sam 6'4", Donovan 6'2", but like outside of that, everyone else is 6'5" plus, right? So. I think
6'5". If you're 6'5" at the 1, 2, 3,
you're fine.
Then you're fine. If you're 6'5" at the 1, 2, 3, 4, you're now small.
Yeah, which I mean, that's what the Oklahoma City Thunder are, right? Like
but they're a different kind of team with different kind of players.
100%. I'm just saying, right? Like, I think you swayed me again. I just continue to keep rooting for Max right here. But I do think. Getting Jalen on the right page has to be a priority. I think continuing to try to optimize Evan Mobley needs to be a priority. That matters to me more than whatever Donovan's form is right now. That matters to me more than some of these defensive miscommunications because I do think the switch can flip on the defensive end of the floor. I trust Donovan to get it going when things matter most. But in order to keep Donovan going when we reach the playoffs, I do think that Jalen needs to be a creator. I think Evan needs to be a creator. I think Max needs to be a creator. I think Sam needs to continue doing what he's doing. And if all of those guys are doing their part, then I think the rotation decisions become easier because then you're not forced to play a backup point guard, right? And I think Dennis has been more hit and miss than just about anybody on this roster.
Yeah. I just want to be big. That's the real crux. I want to be big and I want to be able to shoot. And Dennis isn't super big and isn't super good at shooting. And like that is why I don't have him in the rotation. And I almost think to some extent, like if you need him, it's because the other guys just weren't playing well enough. And like what a great break glass in case of emergency. Like talk about pumpkin insurance, a guy who's like won playoff games for his teams. Is like really, really quite the luxury to have. I just think like from a team structure, like I need lineups with Donovan at the point guard to be able to be okay.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then I think we have some structural issues that are, that and like listen, there's no perfect team, there's no perfect construction, but like I just think I would do everything I could to try to make Donovan at the 1 when Harden's sitting be okay, and to win those minutes, come hell or high water before I downshifted and got smaller, especially with how much this team likes to switch.
Fair. You got the better of me. You threw a curveball at me. I'm going to return the favor here. I just saw a little tweet here from All NBA podcast. Shout out all NBA, All City, all those different networks. They do a great job.
Legs, great pop.
Yes. Top most efficient pick and roll pairings since February 1st. The Cavs have one in the top 10. They have run 92 possessions. So this is most points scored directly through on-ball picks. 92 possessions, they have scored 108 points. So 1.17 points per possession. Who do you think that pairing is?
Oh, I'll bet it's not James Harden and Jared Allen because that would be a trick.
You are correct.
I'm going to guess it is something ridiculous like Dennis Schroeder, Evan Mobley, or something like that. I don't know.
It is James Harden and Evan Mobley. How about that?
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. So, we started the podcast talking about, hey, the chemistry there is a little, it's better than we hoped, particularly given that Evan missed some time and James was playing just with Jared Allen to start.
If you want to know what kind of competitor Justin is, by the way, I throw him a conceptual curveball to be discussed.
I'm giving you stats that you didn't research.
I'm like Socrates and Plato, and Justin's like the quiz master. and he's going to leave this pod going, we tied.
Yeah. Hey, tie goes to home court. Yeah, I think I won. I think I don't know how. 1-1 when you convert to Canadian, that's a win for me. So very encouraging to see James Harden and Evan Mobley continue to develop that chemistry. That's certainly one of the things that I'm going to be keeping an eye on over these remaining games. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys very much. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasetown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasetownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.